Welcome back to the Call Me Obsessed podcast. I'm Erin, and for this episode, it is a lifestyle edition episode called If You Build It, Dreams Will Come. There was a night where I couldn't sleep. My mind wouldn't shut off. Business, my personal life, everything just felt heavy. So I did something I've never done before. I got in my car and I drove to Iowa, to the Field of Dreams. That was a movie that I grew up with. I watched it on VHS with my entire family. It's one of those movies that you watch over and over again. It shows you that dreams are real and what you put into this world finds its way back. When I got to the Field of Dreams, I got there right away in the morning, and it was magical. I sat on a bench, I ran around the field, I played in the cornfield, and I didn't want to leave. It just took my breath away. And during this process, I met three amazing individuals. I met Big Mike, his friend, and another older gentleman. All of us were there for different reasons, but we were connected by the same feeling, dreams, reflections, and figuring out what comes next. Today, I'm welcoming Big Mike into the episode.
And I'm Big Mike.
And today, we're talking about dreams. And the reason we're talking about dreams is I met Big Mike here at the movie site at the Field of Dreams in Iowa.
Dyersville, Iowa. So I have an interesting perspective on Dyersville. The first time I went to Dyersville was in 2007, and it was much different than it is now. You met me on my fourth or fifth trip to the Field of Dreams. The town itself has changed a little bit since the first time I was there. They're building things up. They've done that kind of temporary stadium in the distance so that Major League Baseball was able to play a game over there. You can see that effect on the town. However, I remember first hearing about them building a temporary field and that there were going to be this entire development. And I was worried, not even as somebody that is a resident of Dyersville, but just more that I really liked the idea that this magical place existed in this very, very small town in the middle of America. And I kind of had this feeling I didn't really want it to be touched. It still retains all of that charm. It still retains that feeling that you could wrap in the idea of dreams coming true. It still feels like a very special place. There's now a really nice museum in downtown Dyersville that I highly recommend anybody who spends time at the field go check out. So if I had to sum up the feeling in Dyersville, it is mostly small town America with a little bit of mix of the magic that Hollywood has brought to that area of the country.
I think that's absolutely the perfect way to say it. I randomly was like, I'm going to get this off my bucket list. This has always been a dream of mine to see this place, this magical place that this movie meant so much to me, the movie Field of Dreams, starring Kevin Costner. But you did something extra special on the visit. Can you tell us all about that and what you experienced? It's amazing.
Absolutely. Very much like you, the movie had a significant impact on my life. I still remember watching it for the first time. It was on VHS. It came out. I was too young when it came out in the theaters. And I came across it a couple of years later. I fell in love with it. It is, when people ask me what's my favorite movie of all time, it is The Field of Dreams. The movie had such an impact on me that when I got old enough to venture out and do road trips with my friends, that was definitely a place we wanted to visit. The first time I went there, I loved it so much. And I didn't know, a lot of people don't know this, but if you bring a bat, a ball, and a glove, well, you can play on the field. You could play. First time I went there, I was with my little buddy, Little Mike. There's Big Mike and there's Little Mike. And we actually drove 45 minutes to the nearest store that would sell us a bat, a ball, and a glove just so we can go back and actually play.
Fun.
And and I've done that a couple of times now with a couple of different friends. But I'd say about 2 years ago, I heard that you were able to now book the actual farmhouse as a hotel for the night. And when I heard that, I knew it was something that I was going to have to do. It didn't work out the first year. It was booked up during the busy time, of course. But because of my schedule and my buddy's schedule, we were doing a road trip in the fall, and it turns out that the house was available and it really wasn't that expensive. My main reason for doing that, it was a little selfish because of all the times I had been there and I've showed up to the field at night. I remember the first time arriving there, we got in after hours. We pull up to the field. It's pitch black. The lights aren't on. Nobody's around. It's a very, very spooky and mystical type energy, but I had never seen the lights on the field because they would only turn them on for special events. They would turn them on when they had games, but you routinely, if you were there, the field was only open until dusk and they would not turn the field lights on. And there is something about that scene in Field of Dreams where Ray is returning to the field with Terrence Mann and Archie Graham, where they see the lights of the field in the distance. There was something about that scene. There was something about that vision. There was something about that feeling that I felt it was my purpose to see those lights come on. In the movie, it's really it's the beginning of the moment where Terrence Mann starts to really believe. He has these moments of mystique and wow. He sees the message at Fenway, and now they pick up Archie Graham, and he's slowly starting to come around. And I have to see this for myself. And when he sees the lights from the distance, you can almost see the reaction on his face. This is real. And then it just gets more real when he interacts with all the players. That's Shoeless Joe Jackson. So in staying there at night, I made sure, definitely speaking to the people that run the house, are we going to be able to turn these lights on or what? And they said, yeah. And Erin, that moment it was worth every penny, all the expense of going on that trip. And even if you are a mild baseball fan, even if you are a mild fan of the movie, if you have family members or friends that you could want to share something really special, really spectacular with, I highly recommend finding a way to book the farmhouse at the Field of Dreams, at least for a night, to say you did it once.
So when the lights turned on, what did you do?
So it's funny. We arrived on this trip. We did arrive after hours again, and they have a communication situation where they tell you where the key is. You go into the house. It was very surreal. There's no other way to describe. There's nobody there.
I would be a little creeped out. I'd be like,
considering the story, what happens in that story, and the ghosts coming out of a cornfield, and here we are, just two guys from New York are now knocking on this farm door in the middle of nowhere. Really incredible feeling. But one of the aspects was like they didn't write down in the book how you turn the lights on, so I had to wait for a phone call.
Yep.
I was so call me obsessed. I was so obsessed with getting these lights on. I literally almost went around the house to every switch that was there. It didn't matter. I was turning the faucets. I was flushing the toilet. Maybe the lights will go on everywhere. And I could not figure it out. And finally, I had my little tablet. I was watching Field of Dreams, sitting on the benches there on the first baseline, waiting for the phone call from the contact. There's a time difference coming from the east. We're waiting for this phone call. When are they going to call? And they call and they say, okay, here's where you go. They sent me the instructions of where to go. And I got to physically.
Yes.
And I have the video of the lights because Greg, my buddy Greg, who was on the trip with me, he's the one I've done most of my road trips with. He was in the house. So when I got the call, I said, go to a window and start filming because it's about to happen.
It's on your social media. You shared the story.
I am pitching to Shoeless Joe Jackson.
It's my father. He uses me. Out in the distance.
It's one of the best things that I've ever gotten to do. And
So cool.
talk about the idea of having your own dreams in the palm of your own hand. A very surreal feeling after having been there many times, been there with different friends, been there at different points in my life, different experiences, in the middle of different experiences, to stand in the middle of that field with those lights on. There was really nothing like it, and you really can't put a price on it.
Would you ever do it again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, the only things I would do differently is I would book it for more than one night.
Okay.
I would like to have more time there because there's a lot of amenities. There's a barbecue, you can have food. There's also, you can fit 9 people in the house. It's an enormous house. And I got to sleep in the Kinsella bedroom, the actual bedroom that, Ray and Amy were in.
This is where I slept. Ray Kinsella's bedroom.
You can't describe it. I could sit here talking to you forever, trying to convince somebody that there are places in the world where magic is tangible, something that you can touch and feel. And I could try to explain it to people that there are places on this earth, there are still experiences that prove to you in no uncertain terms that dreams do come true.
Yes.
And that place is one of them.
You described it so well, Big Mike. So I saw you in the morning.
Yeah.
And I randomly could not sleep, and I said, I'm getting this done before winter comes, because I'm in Minnesota. I'm about 4 hours away from the Field of Dreams, and I've always wanted to do it, and I just said, I'm doing it. And I was walking around the bases, and then we met older gentleman who was like crying and running around the bases and throwing the ball, and he was just like fell in love with him because like you guys had that same dream and I had that same dream. So it was really, really cool, that experience that we were all having together on the field, running the bases. I was going in and out of the cornfields.
My first experience going to the Field of Dreams, when I realized that you could play on the field. Mm-hmm. And when I realized that that was something that it wasn't widely known, but if you were in the know, you knew. If you brought because a lot of people are on road trips with their kids and maybe they're on a travel team, they already have their equipment. They roll up, oh, wow, like go get your bat, go get your glove. I was like, you know what I want to do? I would want, if I could afford it, I would just kind of stay all day on the field and be the pitcher or be designated something for all the families, all the fans, all the other dreamers, and be a part of that, because the experience I had with you and that older gentleman, that's an experience. I've had it before. I've had it every single time I've gone, and you talk to people because we're all there for the same reason. Yes. We're all inspired by the same type of thing. We are all there looking for something. I know that I go there looking for something. It's like a holy place. It's a revered, hallowed ground place, and I felt that way in other places. Mm-hmm. But there is something uniquely special about the Field of Dreams movie site.
Yeah, I decided to go also, not just randomly, but for like life decisions and a path that I felt like I needed some guidance. So I needed time in the car, but like I remember I was sitting on the bench on the top row, and you guys came out and you pointed it out to me. I was sitting right next to it. What was on that bench and how it was carved out?
Yeah, that's the heart, the Ray Loves Annie heart that's featured in the movie. And that is the bleachers that were built for the movie. Yep. You did it. I did it. You walk out to the corn. You pretend to be Terrence Mann, where you're touching in the corn, trying to and laughing and I'm melting. Doing all of it.
I was like, what is out here? Where did Earl Jones go?
Exactly. That's another scene that's really impactful, where they invite Terry to come out with the players, and that it's a very personal scene to me, because you have this situation where the main character finally reaches his breaking point. The main character finally reaches the end of his rope. And he's speaking to that entity. And he said, I built this field. I've traveled the country. Anything that was ever asked of me, I've done it. And I've never asked what's in it for me. And then he says, well, what are you saying, Ray? I'm saying, what's in it for me? Think about how many times that you've done things in your life and you've had interactions and relationships and you've given more than you felt you got back, or you've been in a situation where you don't feel appreciated, but you felt you gave it 110%. How many times do you find yourself up against that situation and you say, I've done this all without asking one time, what's in it for me? And every time I get there, I think of that scene, because then he gets the counseling from the entity, and is I think you better stay here, Ray. I think you better understand the scope of what's happening.
Yes.
That you weren't invited. Terrence was invited, so
Yeah.
that means something to me.
It did pay off for him. He
Absolutely.
Oh
Yeah.
I mean, I got goosebumps just thinking about it, and you're so right on how this movie is so relatable to anyone. It is magical, and your obsession of the movie as well, like is in. I'm not obsessed with the movie, but I'm obsessed what it meant to me as a child. I just think you did a really good job explaining that. It's so cool.
I appreciate that. I have found a way to interweave some of the lessons that I've learned from something like Field of Dreams, and that's not the only piece of art that has that I feel a connection to, but it has been one of the more versatile pieces of art that seems to apply in a lot of different endeavors that I've started.
Yeah.
And the idea that there is still magic in the world, and the idea that if you believe in something, it could be completely and totally crazy compared to what other people may think, there is still value in that. And I've applied that in all careers that I've ever had, somehow referenced in one way or another, some lesson, something that I've taken away from that movie. And really, it's been my pleasure, because I've gotten so much benefit out of looking at things through that lens. There are so many adventures and experiences that I cherish now, and I feel like they would not have existed, or at least I would not have recognized them as the value that they were, if it weren't for the mindset that ended up in here because of Field of Dreams.
It just shows you that it is okay to dream, and dream big, and believe in the impossible, and interpret things any way you wish.
Absolutely. And it's a lesson that goes far beyond a road trip to Iowa. It's a lesson that goes far beyond going that extra mile for a connection that you might feel to either a person or a place. It's really something that's almost indescribable, but in a way, that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Really, what we're talking about is we're talking about love. Like that's love. That's
love.
It's
That's love.
Indescribable thing.
Yes.
And it's not supposed to be. You're not supposed to be able to explain it. You're supposed to. I can't tell you what I feel, but I know that I feel it, and I think
it's like
that's
the
it
wind.
for me.
You know it's there, and you can feel it. You just can't see it. When I left Field of Dreams, I went to go see this place where this horrific plane crash happened. Those 3 artists that got in a plane crash. It was the same thing there. A terrible, sad accident that it's referred to the day the music died. It also reminded me to live out my dream fully. Life is short. So the two came together. And it was such an experience then meeting you, and like I just went to New York like a few weeks prior. Everything happens for a reason, and I think that also has a lot to do with dreams. For me, I believe everything happens for a reason. I was meant to meet you. I was meant to meet that older gentleman who, had his glove from childhood and got to throw a pitch and had us take pictures of him, and
and I think you sharing that part of it is really important, because I grew up in a situation where my family really didn't travel a lot. My mother was adventurous, but my father and my father's side of the family, you'd be like, I want to go on a road trip to Oklahoma, and they thought you were like weird. Why in the world do you want to go to a place like that? But there are so many places and so many experiences and so many different people to meet, and going to a place like, if you're going to plan a road trip and it's going to be in that area of the country, if you're not going to visit the Field of Dreams, if you're not going to visit that museum, if you're not going to visit the site of the plane crash with Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, and
The pilot.
Buddy Holly,
Yep.
The day the music died. Like, what I'm always looking for every time I'm out there is some sort of impact, some sort of feeling. I'm looking for something that I could take away with me, and I think you get something out of both of those places.
Yeah.
And there's countless places like that in the country and in the world.
Yeah, so you must take after your mother, adventurous.
I absolutely do. Yeah, I think a lot of my adventures, a lot of the cooler things that I've gotten to do happened after she passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I hold on to the idea that wherever she is, she knows that I'm not saying no to opportunities. I'm not saying no to experiences. I'm not taking anything that I'm doing for granted. And I hope she realizes just how much she has been the inspiration. But there was a moment where my mother almost passed away when I was very young.
Okay.
It was something that defined my life. She had a brain aneurysm back in the mid 80s. And this was, brain aneurysms are very serious business even now. But back when this happened to her, it was just me and my brother. We were very young at home. When that happened, the odds of you living were very, very low. Yeah. Like, mostly, if you had a brain aneurysm, you were dead before you hit the ground. And if you did survive, your quality of life was probably not going to be too good. Yeah. But it was a miracle. It was a miracle. She survived. She had no real ill effects, no paralysis, no brain damage, none of that. But I was only about 7 years old when that happened. And now being how old I am now, being in my mid 40s, I realize like that was the miracle of all miracles, because if I had grown up in the family without my mother, if it was just my father raising my brother and I, the guy today, the person you're talking to, the guy that's been around the world and written books and invented sandwiches and been on the radio and commercials and all of that, the guy would not exist. This person, as you know me, would not be here. Yes. And I also know that the miracle that is wrapped up in the movie Field of Dreams, I had a miracle like that, because the similar to the time that Ray had with Shoeless Joe on the field and the time that Ray got to spend with his father on the field, that's time that they stole. And the time that I had with my mother, the time that we had with my mother, we stole it. And it was the single most defining element that makes me who I am today. And I could not be prouder of that.
What is your current obsession? I'll
be honest with you. My current obsession, it's going to sound really weird from the guy that created the biggest sandwich Subway would ever offer. And that's a topic for a whole other conversation.
Oh, it is.
Obviously, they don't call me Big Mike for no reason at all. Everything in general, yeah. But I have recently become obsessed. Prepare yourself.
Okay.
Plain Greek non-fat yogurt mixed with chocolate flavored protein powder.
Okay.
A couple of months ago, a buddy of mine turned me on to this idea, because I eat way too much of the sweet treats. It didn't matter. I would love to tell you I had sweet treats twice a week, but I didn't. It was every night. I had yodels and ding dongs and nutty bars and Suzy Q's and ring dings and Yankee doodles and you name it. If it was chocolate, if it was creamy, if it was peanut butter on it, even better. And it was going right down the hatch. But it's not good. It wasn't good for me. Obviously, they call me Big Mike for a reason. But I'll tell you, since January 5th, every single night, 3/4 of a cup of plain Greek non-fat yogurt, 1 scoop of chocolate flavored whey protein. I mix it up like it's cake batter. I'm obsessed. I not only do I crave it. I crave it. And if you were to tell me, if back in October you would have told me, hey, in March you will have not had chocolate for 2.5 months, you're going to be eating Greek non-fat plain yogurt, which actually makes me feel a certain way, even when I say it out loud, I would have said, you're out of your mind. But I'm telling you out there, if you got sugar as a problem and you want to lose some weight, plain Greek non-fat yogurt, mix it with some protein powder for flavoring, you're going to be obsessed,
I
just
love
like
it.
me. And anytime on Instagram, I'm called the Feast Man, all spelled out, THEFEASTMAN. And that ties to my Subway sandwich days, but we'll talk about that another time.
You didn't mention that to me on the Field of Dreams. You did
I
not.
didn't. No.
And I was researching you and I saw this. I went, wait, what? And then I went, is this just local in New Jersey or Long Island? Nope.
Nope.
So that is
Every
a whole
Subway
story.
restaurant in America. Yep.
Big Mike, I want to thank you for coming on to this Lifestyle Edition episode. Thank you all.